I don't stand side by side with nobody till I bleed with them first.
What did we just see? You probably think this world is a dream come true.
When I step into this ring, yeah, bro, I am addicted.
Don't sleep on Luca!
Maybe tomorrow we'll all wear 42.
If you fight for your dreams will fight for you.
2023 has come to a close, which means it's time to look back at all the year had to offer. The wrestling world was very busy this year. There was so much great stuff happening around the world, and despite watching so much, I obviously did not catch it all. Just like I said in the music retrospective, these are just my opinions, and this video is in no way an objective list. My top 10 matches aren't the correct list or the objectively correct list. My list, the matches, the wrestlers in this video are all just simply what I enjoyed from this year. And what I enjoy and don't enjoy could be completely different from you. There's something for everybody in wrestling, so here's what I enjoyed from the great year of 2023. Stardom was very confusing this year, to say the least. At times they were red hot, and other times they were plagued with various issues such as odd booking decisions or an injury plague taking out most of their top names. However, that didn't stop this promotion from doing what it does best, and that is putting on some of the best women's wrestling on the planet. Starting in March, we had a match that could have easily landed its way in the top 5 of the year. And for many, it did. Me talking about it here tells you it isn't on my list, and it's for one reason. There are many things that can influence the way you view a match, the crowd, the wrestlers, the story, but in this case, the outcome. The match that I am talking about is Saya Kamitani versus Hazuki for the Wonder of Stardom Championship during the Triangle Derby Finals. I absolutely love Saya Kamitani's run with Stardom's white belt. While I knew that they were likely going the route of a bout with Mina Shirakawa, this match did everything to convince you otherwise. And it is that belief that makes the result that much more crushing. You are made to believe it is Hazuki's time until it isn't. On the same night, we saw two eternal foes battle once again as Azumi and Starlight Kid faced off for the High Speed Championship. Seeing these two go at it is always special and fun. You know you're always in for some high speed, high impact offense with plenty of reversals and sequences that will just leave you wowed. And of course, despite their crazy offense, you'll see some great limb work throughout. Just two young goats showing why sooner or later they will go from being the future to the present. From there, we go to April with All-Star Grand Queendom, a great event top to bottom from Stardom. Once again, we have Saya Kamitani defending her white belt against Mina Shirakawa. While the booking around this feud was confusing, with the formation of Club Venus and Mina's departure from Cosmic Angels, it doesn't take away from the moment. Okay, well, maybe a little, but the match itself is so great. There is masterful limb work and story in this match. Mina working Saya's legs so she can't hit the move that destroyed her face months ago, Saya not having the courage to hit the Phoenix Splash again. It all culminates in a beautiful moment of Mina winning the white belt. Of course, this would all be crapped on once Stardom had her defend the belt once and lose it after 34 days. It's okay, we're focusing on the positives. I'm not mad about it. Why am I still mad about this months later? Anyways, moving on, All-Star Grand Queendom also saw the dream match of Mayu Iwatani taking on Mercedes Moné for the IWGP Women's Championship. Though it feels a bit short on rewatch, it's still fun to see this match happen. To close out, we last saw Julia defend the World of Stardom Championship against Tam Nakano, a heated rivalry that came to its peak here. This was a physical match, it was heated and saw big move after big move. We saw Julia brutally drive Tam through a table, which is still one of the craziest bumps this year. And of course, finally, we saw Tam finally reach the mountaintop and win the red belt. As a result of what happened at All-Star Grand Queendom, we saw Azumi defend her high-speed belt against Mei Seira in May. This was a great match with a lot of intensity from Azumi. Trying to avenge her loss in a tag match, Azumi is hell-bent on retaining against Mei. Another beautiful display of high-speed wrestling. I am always so amazed how much these wrestlers are just able to achieve in such a short amount of time. I also love that you see such a variety. You see high-flying moves from both Azumi and Mei. You get strikes, you get limb work, you get submissions. It's a style that I love, and these two were perfect. At Flashing Champions, Donna Del Mundo's Julia, Mai Sakurai, and Tekla faced off against the Trios Champions of Stardom, known as the Artists of Stardom Championships. Restart. Restart is the trio of Sayori Ano, Natsupoi, and Kairi. The highlights of this match were obviously Natsupoi interacting with her former Donna Del Mundo members. This is what wrestling needs more of, man. True animosity. There is a spot where Tekla delivers a kick to Natsupoi that is just so stiff and brutal. The Donna Del Mundo members hate Natsupoi, and anytime they meet, it is literally on sight. You also get great bits and pieces of Giulia facing off against Ano and Kairi. This is a great trios match where all 6 women shine and you get to see great tandem offenses. In the summer, we had the 5-star Grand Prix. This year, the tournament got plagued with many injuries, but we still got to see great matchups. Natsupoi vs Starlight Kid, Utami Hayashishita vs Mina Shirakawa, Natsupoi vs Suzu Suzuki, Sayori Ano vs Maika, Utami Hayashishita vs Maika. I ended up missing a lot of it though, especially once a lot of people started going down with injuries and the pool started, diluting a bit. But it still ended up being a pretty great tournament with pretty great matchups. At Stardom X Stardom, we saw Mayu Iwatani face off against Utami Hayashishita for the IWGP Women's Championship. These two are one of my favorite and underrated wrestling soulmates. Whenever these two just face off, it's just pure magic. I loved Utami bringing out the old gear for this match. The kicks and strikes in this match are amazing, and like all their matches, Mayu just knows how to sell Utami's offense and the fight from underneath despite being champion. Just missed out on my top 10. With that being said, to close out this section, I'll rapid fire some stuff from Stardom this year. Like we said earlier, we saw Mina Shirakawa win the white belt, Tam Nakano win the red belt, Donna Del Mundo captured the trios titles, Tam Nakano became a double champion, Mirai won the white belt, Mina and Mariah May won the tag titles, Oedo Tai and Queen's Quest feud that we will very much talk about later. Mariah May showed out in the 5-star, Sayori Ano and Natsupoi won the tag titles, Saki Kashima won the high speed title, which then resulted in Mei Seira winning the high speed title. Suzu Suzuki and Maika propelled themselves to new heights. Giulia won the strong title. Megan Bayne debuting and becoming a force. And finally, Maika putting it all together to win the big one and become World of Stardom champion. So much great stuff, and I'm still likely forgetting a ton. A great year for Stardom and very excited for the new year. Here are all the matches I just listed along with other matches I personally enjoyed. Just like Stardom, AEW's 2023 was a confusing one. They had some of the highest of highs in wrestling this year, but also had some of the lowest of lows. I know I always say I don't like to talk about the negatives, but when it comes to retrospectives like this, you can't just act like everything is rainbows and sunshines. Just like I critique Stardom, the rest must endure the same. AEW had its plethora of questionable booking decisions and controversy this year. They had a lot of stuff that I just didn't enjoy quite that much and made for a very middle of the road year because, like I said, they had extreme highs and extreme lows. However, just like Stardom, I don't think they completely fell into the depths and actually remained consistent for the most part. I definitely think the start of the year was a bit stronger than the rest, but let us finally get into the good stuff. Starting off the year, I'm actually going to start off highlighting one specific wrestler's work, and of course, if you know me, you know that I'm going to talk about Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson had to deal with quite a bit of injuries this year, but that didn't stop him from being a part of AEW's best work this year. Let's look at why the start of the year was so good for AEW, and no surprise, it's because Bryan was wrestling on almost every show leading up to Revolution, and if he wasn't wrestling, he had some part in the show. We had the Bryan Danielson Classic basically, as leading up to his match with MJF, he was facing off against some of the best Dynamite had to offer. In LA, a show I was glad to see live, we saw Bryan Danielson face off against Konosuke Takeshita. This match was everything you'd imagine a match with Takeshita to be like. Hard hitting and electric. I was so amazed by this match, and then the very next week he goes on and tops this performance. Going against Bandito, Danielson had a great showcase of displaying a different style. He and Bandito were magnificent, and yet it didn't stop there. With one of the best TV matches of the year, Bryan Danielson faced off against Rush. This is a match you have to check out. This match was insane with Rush and Danielson just laying it all out there. Some of the hardest hitting stuff, and Danielson does a great job of incorporating some color to the match. Also have to shout out his other bouts during this run against Tony Nese, Top Flight, Brian Cage and Timothy Thatcher. To cap off this insane run, Danielson just goes out and gives MJF one of the best matches of his career with the Iron Man match at Revolution, a match that goes an hour yet never really feels like it. It has great wrestling and great bits of drama. Some other noteworthy matches throughout the year include the chaotic Anarchy in the Arena against the Elite, his match with Okada at Forbidden Door that was slightly hindered by injury, his great bout with Zack Sabre Jr. at Wrestle Dream, and of course his entire run in the Continental Classic. Another wrestler who had a great beginning of the year was Darby Allin. Darby beat Samoa Joe for the TNT title in Seattle, and from there he has a short but crazy run with the title, defending against Juice Robinson, a great match with Kushida, a match with Buddy Matthews, before finally having a classic no-holds-barred match with Samoa Joe. Their feud around the TNT title was some great work and some of my favorite from the year. Forbidden Door was once again a great pay-per-view for AEW. One of the best matches was the multi-man match that saw the Elite team with Eddie Kingston and Tomohiro Ishii to face off against the Blackpool Combat Club with Shota Umino and Konosuke Takeshita. As expected with multi-man matches, it was all over the place. It was real great to see the interactions between Eddie Kingston, Claudio Castagnoli, and Jon Moxley. One of the best moments of the match comes from Ishii and Takeshita. Ishii does masterful work to put Takeshita over. I highly suggest you seek this little bit out. Takeshita lays a forearm into Ishii and Ishii just sells it like Takeshita just killed him. Forbidden Door once again also saw a fun four-way match for the International Championship. Orange Cassidy, Zack Sabre Jr., Katsuyori Shibata, and Daniel Garcia. I had the time of my life just watching Daniel Garcia constantly interrupt the other three men's interactions. A highly competitive and fun match. Forbidden Door also saw the sequel to another match from the beginning of the year. Of course, we are talking about Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. This is still a great match. I just am not as high on it as others. You'll hear a bit later, and I promise you'll hear my reasoning in a future video. It's a great match nonetheless. AEW had the biggest show of the year with All In at Wembley, a great show albeit with some questionable booking decisions. Following it was All Out. There's a match from this card that we'll talk about later, but for the time being, I want to highlight Chris Statlander versus Ruby Soho. Statlander had a great reign with the TBS title, and I really enjoyed this match especially. There was still antics from the Outcasts, but it felt like a match that really allowed Ruby to shine her best, and of course Statlander always works best with somebody that she can be a base for. Going back to Wrestle Dream, we saw the matchup of Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland. This was a great first match between the two. I was super excited for this program and it did not disappoint. The stomp on the outside was great. The story and match were great. Prince Nana's involvement was actually a great bit of interference and it was a strong contender for the top 10 list. To close out, I want to highlight the Continental Classic, of course, though I was not able to, tune in for all of it. It was still so great and some of the best work AEW did all year. We got to see competitive wrestling with a sense of urgency behind it. We got to see great stories unfold for every single person involved. We got to see guys get the time to speak and prove why we need to hear more from all of them. It was so great and I so look forward to future installments of this and especially a potential women's Continental Classic. With that being said, I know there is a lot that wasn't mentioned. While I could talk about some of these other matches that I have noted down, I really just want to focus on the stuff I thought was noteworthy, even though I do feel kind of bad for not going into as much detail with some of these matches. With that being said, here are all the matches I just listed, along with other matches I personally enjoyed. Alright, so let us get a major disclaimer out of the way for this section. I am a very casual viewer of the WWE product. I tune in for the pay-per-views and that is about it. I don't keep up with the weekly shows and I don't watch NXT. Now, I'm not like others who hate on the product or hate watch the product. To be honest, it has just fallen off a bit for me, especially after about, I want to say 2021. I know that is crazy to say given the good year they had in the eyes of others, but it's just a matter of personal taste. I still tune in for their pay-per-views and it doesn't mean that I don't find bits and pieces to love. Also, just like any other promotions, certain matches might not be on here because of stuff like outcome affecting my thoughts. Getting started, let's look at WrestleMania Night 1. A major talking point from this night was the surprising men's tag showcase. This was just fast-paced, highly energetic, fun, You saw Ricochet do crazy moves. We saw Braun Strowman go to the top rope. We saw Chad Gable hit the rolling suplex on Braun Strowman. Angelo Dawkins showed out, including trucking Braun Strowman on the outside. It was a wild match and a fun experience. On that same night, we saw the great story of Dominic Mysterio and Rey Mysterio. Father versus son was great with all the theatrics. I hate the blatant sponsorship that surrounded this match, but it is not enough to take away from the fun of this match. To close out night one, we had another story-driven match in our main event. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens took on the Usos for the tag titles. It was a great fun match, and it could be a bit move spamming at some points, but you know, it's still a great moment. And it's especially a great moment that's capped off with the emotional victory of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. In the main event, on the biggest stage, two guys capped off a great journey. Wish the reign that followed was a bit better, and I'm sorry, gotta get this out the way, but Zayn's journey really should have capped off with the world title. That's just my bias speaking though. Night 2 had a great triple threat for the IC title, and we will talk about that later. Backlash was a unique pay-per-view for WWE, taking place in Puerto Rico. This highly elevated the match between Damian Priest and Bad Bunny. The crowd was electric for this and made for so many fun spots. The most notable, of course, being the LWO run-in with Savio Vega and the return of Carlito. Just a fun match with a great crowd. Night of Champions saw Gunther take on Mustafa Ali, a match that many wrote off, and yet it turned out to be such a fun one. While short, it was still great, and I think it's underrated in the eyes of many. I don't know what it is, but it was just a great display of Gunther's dominance and Ali's underdog spirit. Finally, at Payback, we saw two great matches. The one that caught me by surprise was Becky Lynch versus Trish Stratus. I was genuinely surprised by how much I liked the match. It was just a good back and forth between the two. The second match was the street fight between Judgment Day and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. This was a fun street fight. KO's dive from the crowd was absolutely insane. The entire thing was chaotic. It is crazy to see just how far the Judgment Day have come since their inception. For this section, that was pretty much everything I enjoyed from WWE this year, so on to our next section. So, this section is for everything outside of the three main companies that I watch. This section is for New Japan, Noah, Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling, Impact, Ring of Honor, and any other indies or wrestling promotions. Starting off, the first match I want to highlight is from Tokyo Joshi Pro, and that is the matchup of Miyu Watanabe defending her international title against Trish Adora. If you saw my sort of wish list video for AEW's women's division, you'll know that Trish Adora is a wrestler that I am a fan of and think she deserves more recognition. This match is a prime example of why. First, it was fun to see a battle of strength between these two women. Second, it was fun to see Adora work in a foreign environment and how quickly she was able to get the crowd on Watanabe's side. Now, if you watch TJPW, that's not necessarily a hard thing to do, but Adora was able to get it done quickly through her offense. She played her role to perfection and allowed Watanabe to have a great fight from underneath moment. Rumors are that AEW recently signed Queen Aminata. Let Adora be next, please. At Wrestle Kingdom Night 2, the collaborative event with Noah, we saw El Desperado face off against Yohei. If you love matches and stories built around limb work and submission work, this is the match for you. This is a great, likely under the radar match. El Desperado worked Yohei's leg to perfection this match, like trying to rip it off, man. Just a great match. Dominion was a great show for New Japan. The 6-man matchup of Kazuchika Okada, Tomohiro Ishii, and Hiroshi Tanahashi taking on Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Shota Umino was masterful work. It was so great to see Claudio in Japan, and I hope we get to see more. His interactions in this match with Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii were great. Okada having beef with all the younger guys was such a fun story this year, and that played off even better with Umino. The crowd was electric for this match. Also have to shout out the hilarious moment where Claudio tells commentator Gino that his shirt is too small for him. Dominion also had a great main event where Sanada defended the IWGP World title against Yota Tsuji. Coming back from an excursion, so many people were curious about Tsuji. What New Japan and Tsuji nailed from the start was presentation. Off presentation alone, people were not only interested in Tsuji, but many even thought he might get the Okada treatment and win the title in his return to New Japan. What followed was different from the typical New Japan main event. Short and straight to the point, Tsuji and Sanada put on a barn burner in only 17 minutes. Tsuji showed off his electric moveset, hitting a huge spear followed by a Fosbury flop to the outside. A fun match with an active crowd. Sticking to New Japan, Jon Moxley faced off against El Desperado in a death match at New Japan's Independence Day Night 2. Moxley and Desperado left it all out there, a violent affair and one that is available to watch on New Japan's YouTube channel. Our final match is one that was easily the best women's match in North America this year, at least to me. We look at Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor, where in the main event, Willow Nightingale took on Athena for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. This match just barely misses out on my top 10 this year. Again, it's the outcome thing. It was just such a compelling matchup. The entire match convinces you that this is Willow's moment. This is her time and Athena's time will be coming to a close. However, it just does not happen. Athena pulls out the victory and you are left with a great match, but can't help but wish the outcome was different. This is still a great match and both women were great in showcasing the excellence of women's wrestling. With that being said, here are all the matches I just listed along with other matches I personally enjoyed. Before we get into our top 10 matches of the year, I want to share some awards as a way to highlight and give flowers to various wrestlers who had stellar years. Now, to make things a bit more fun, I wanted to take inspiration from college football and name these awards. The names might also be telling of my biases in wrestling. With that being said, here are the inaugural Triple Crown Podcast Wrestling Awards of 2023. Starting off with our Entrance of the Year award, there were so many great entrances this year in wrestling, many that were over the top and many that kept it simple. For each of these awards, I'm going to give a short list followed by the award winner. The first entrance on the short list took place at Stardom Sunshine. In an all-out faction war, Queen's Quest made a magnificent entrance. This faction comes out ready for war. The only improvement to be made is with Hana and Miyu finally getting their own robes. One of the first things that drew me to Queen's Quest was their presentation. The big three of Queen's Quest, Utami Hayashishita, Saya Kamitani, and Azumi, along with Lady C, come out in these beautiful intricate robes that make them look like absolute royalty. So you kind of just wish the same for Hina and Miyu because they come out in baseball jerseys. But paired with the music, it is an entrance fit for the battle that would occur in that steel cage match that we'll definitely talk about later. The next entrance on the short list was Hangman Adam Page's entrance at AEW Revolution. This entrance right here was amazing. With a great new attire, Hangman is accompanied by a new song this night. Just like Queen's Quest, Hangman is ready for war and he lets it be known by his entrance song of the night, Ghost Riders in the Sky by the Outlaws. It is a very simple entrance, but it is one that is effective and sets the big match feel for the match. Next, we travel to Puerto Rico, where you would have thought a concert hijacked a WWE show. Making his hometown entrance, Bad Bunny makes his entrance to his own song, Chambea. There is so much that goes into making this entrance so amazing. First off, there is likely no feeling in the world like coming out to your own song and an entire crowd singing it. I mean, the crowd just explodes hearing the first couple of seconds of the song. Second, the production. From the drone flying in the crowd, to the pyro, to the quality, WWE just went all out and it resulted in one of the most talked about entrances of the year. Coming in as the runner-up for the award is the GOAT himself, Bryan Danielson. Funny, huh? You thought just because this is the final countdown entrance of the year award that it would just be automatic for Danielson. Well, in any other year it likely would have, but we got something special at the award winner spot. But yes, our runner-up is Bryan Danielson's entrance at Forbidden Door. In a dream match against Okada, Tony Khan went all out to make it a special one. The smoke, the red graphics on the Tron, and finally the moment that music hits. I nearly jumped out of my seat when this happened. It was just so great being able to see its return. I'm telling you right now, if he uses that thing in Wembley, lock it in for 2024 award winner. But speaking of our award winner, we arrived to it. The winner of the final countdown award goes to two men. two men whose dual entrances were not only spectacular, but added so much to their following match. We look to Wrestle Kingdom 17 and the dual entrances of Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. When you take into account everything, the feud, the face-heel dynamic, the story of this entire match, there wasn't a better entrance this year. First, Kenny Omega coming out to One Winged Angel. The graphics that precede the reveal, Omega's attire, and just the way he carries himself during this entrance. The smug grin he wears as he walks down the ramp. All perfectly contrasted by Ospreay's entrance. The return of his old music, elevated, surrounded by his United Empire brethren, clad in gold, silver, and emerald. The grand hero makes his grand entrance to take on the villain that has plagued his life for the past couple of years. A story told in just entrances alone. It was perfect, and it is the inaugural Final Countdown Entrance of the Year award winner. Alright, so no special name for this one, but still pretty straightforward. If you notice certain matches were mentioned in the earlier sections, that is because they're likely going to make appearances in sections like this one. Starting with our runner-ups, we have two WWE events. While I didn't enjoy some of the matches, Backlash was still a fun event from just vibes alone. The peaks of this show were obviously Bianca Belair vs Io Sky and Bad Bunny vs Damian Priest. The former was a great matchup between the two, and the crowd was heavily behind Io. I almost completely forgot about this match, and it's because with a different outcome, it could have easily slotted itself into the bottom half of my top 10 list. It was still great to see two of my favorites put on a banger match though, and as we discussed earlier, Bad Bunny and Damian Priest was a fun spectacle for both men's home country. WrestleMania Night 1 this year also was a pretty great event. As we talked about earlier, the men's showcase was pretty fun. Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio had a great story and fun match. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte had a pretty good match, post-match antics aside. And of course, the main event that was great and gave the crowd a feel-good moment. Another set of events that were great this year are two events that I got to attend live. The first, Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor. A great night with so much variety. Konosuke Takeshita and Willie Mack had a great match on the pre-show. Athena and Yuka Sakazaki put on a fun match, and I still can't believe I got to see Yuka live. Samoa Joe and Mark Briscoe put on a great match with the emotional story of Mark learning to be a singles competitor. Daniel Garcia had a fun match with Hiroshi Tanahashi. Wheeler Yuta and Katsuyori Shibata had a great Pure Rules match, and it's fun to look back on this event and realize I got to see Yuka, Tanahashi, and Shibata, and that's just something that seemed unfathomable to me just even like a year ago. The multi-tag match for the Ring of Honor tag titles was also super fun and chaotic, and the main event was just so great with the decade-long story of Claudio Castagnoli and Eddie Kingston. Another great show that I got to attend was New Japan's Resurgence. This was such a fun event, the venue was so unique, and the match card was fun throughout. Mercedes Moné and Stephanie Vaquer had a fun match. Momo Kogo proved just how crazy the gap is when it comes to Japanese women's wrestling when she gave Willow one of her best matches of her career. And Willow's no slouch. Please don't think that that's me saying anything about Willow. Put simply, Momo isn't one of Stardom's main event talents, and yet her and Willow showed out and had, in my opinion, the best match of the one-day tournament. The dynamic also worked well, with Willow's power and dominance being on full display against the smaller Momo. It was also fun to see their characters interact. It just makes me want to see Willow in Stardom and have her put on some more barn burners and even join a faction like Stars. Juice Robinson and Fred Roser had a pretty chaotic street fight that included an appearance from Toni Storm. Kenta and Hikuleo had a good match, and there was that crazy spot in the crowd. Jon Moxley teamed with his two sons to take on Okada, Rocky Romero, and Tomohiro Ishii. This match was like a preview for the Dominion match that would come to follow. Once again, it was so fun seeing the Young Guns Yuta and Umino just be absolute nuisances to Okada. Will Ospreay took on Hiroshi Tanahashi in a great match, and in the main event, a spectacle I was glad to be a part of. Though cut short by injury, there was nothing like the beginning of Mercedes Moné versus Willow Nightingale. Just like her moment with Bianca Belair 2 years prior, the crowd knew how special this match was. I can remember it like it was yesterday as all of us stomped, clapped, and yelled as loud as we could as the two women just stood in the ring. As somebody who loves women's wrestling, I just hope the two women knew that they had our support and we knew how special it was for them to get this spot. Very much looking forward to a part 2. Coming in third, night 1 of Stardom's 5-star Grand Prix tournament. Another night that is sadly hurt by an injury in the main event, but still a great night nonetheless. Every single tournament match that took place this night ranged from amazing to match of the year quality. Mariah May vs Azumi, Starlight Kid vs Natsupoi, Utami Hayashishita vs Mina Shirakawa, Momo Watanabe vs Mirai, Shuri vs Suzu Suzuki, Mayuri Watani vs Hazuki, and Julia vs Sayori Yano. So much great wrestling on this night. From Shuri and Suzu Suzuki's violent kicking to Julia and Sayori Yano's violent time limit draw where some blood was drawn. Just a magnificent night that sadly many don't remember due to Saya Kamatani's injury in the main event. It was also the debut of Megan Bayne, who we'll definitely talk about later. Our runner-up for the award is AEW Revolution, a last-second buy for me and one that I was glad I bought. Many might look back and on paper be surprised, but it was a great show. Ricky Starks actually got a good match out of Jericho, much of which was due to the fact that the JAS was banned from ringside. Despite not being a fan, Jack Perry and Christian had a great casket match with a funny visual ending. The House of Black took on the Elite for the Trios titles. This match was great and missed the top 10. So many fun matchups and the House looked dominant in this match. That knee from Buddy Matthews is so great and the House winning made the match all the more better. Jamie Hayter, we miss you, put on a good match with Saraya and Ruby Soho. Hangman and Jon Moxley put on such a great match with their Texas Death Match. It misses out on my top 10 just barely for reasons we'll get into later, but this match is just awesome, man. The story leading up to it and the violence of this match were so great. And the main event, man, that Iron Man match is still so breathtaking, even on rewatch. The match had me believing Danielson might actually take it. So smooth and goes by like nothing. I will never forget the image of a bloody Bryan Danielson laughing in his element while MJF just cries wishing for this hell to be over. However, the winner of the Show of the Year award for me goes to Stardom's All-Star Grand Queendom. The best night of wrestling this year by far. It was so much fun staying up until 4 in the morning watching this with my friend. First off, Mei Seira and Starlight Kid faced off against Azumi and Mei Suruga in a fun high-speed display that would eventually set up Azumi versus Mei Seira. Seriously, some of the best high-speed wrestling from Stardom. Queen's Quest, represented by Utami and Miyu, face off against Hazuki and Fuwa-chan. Think of this as Stardom's celebrity match this year. It was actually a fun watch, especially because they were not holding back. Some of the suplexes Utami hits on Fuwa-chan in this match are incredible. Following this is an emotional bout that Stardom fans truly wanted to go on forever to delay the inevitable. The match, of course, is Himeka's proper one-on-one retirement match against her Donna Del Mundo member and tag partner Maika. These two put on such a great match with stiff strikes, headbutts, and various suplexes and power bombs. Seeing Maika beg for Himeka to keep fighting and pleading for her to kick out in the final moments are just so emotional. Following this is the match for the Artist titles, Stardom's Trios titles, where Prominence, the team of Risa Sera, Suzu Suzuki, and Hiragi Karime defended their titles against Restart, consisting of Kairi, Sayori Yano, and Natsupoi. This match was amazing. Karime is such a dominant powerhouse and is so great. Risa Sera has such a unique look and aura, and that is only amplified by how great she is in the ring. Suzu Suzuki is baffling for how great she is at such a young age. On the other side, do I really need to tell you how great Restart is? This is one of the best trios matches of the year, with great showcases of high speed, power, strikes, and counters aplenty. As we discussed earlier, Mina Shirakawa got her crowning moment in the great story-driven match with Saya Kamatani. Shuri took on Chihiro Hashimoto in a great match filled with strikes, kicks, and a dominant display from Hashimoto and her suplexes. Mayuri Watani took on Mercedes Moné in a dream match, and Tam Nakano defeated Julia in a crazy good match to cap off an amazing night of wrestling. All-Star Grand Queendom, the inaugural Show of the Year award winner. Didn't expect a Pokemon reference in a wrestling video, huh? Anyways, the Future Sight Award is my way of telling you which names to watch out for in 2024. However, it is not necessarily the biggest names or the most unknown names. These are just some wrestlers that I think you can expect to have a big year in 2024, and I'm trying my best not to be super obvious with them. Like, we all expect Swerve Strickland to have a big 2024, so he's not on the list. Starting off, Miyu Watanabe from Tokyo Joshi Pro. Put simply, I think with the departure of Yuka Sakazaki, I think this may finally be the year we see Miyu win the big one. She has come up short so many times, 2024 has to be the year it finally happens. Next is two more women, Queen Aminata and Trish Adora. You saw me talk about both in the AEW Women's Division video, and here they are again. Now, because I'm so late to getting this video out, I can tell you that the rumors are Aminata is signed to AEW now. With that, I expect her to have a great 2024, showing out throughout. I'm not expecting anything crazy like title wins this year, but I think we see her in great matches and feuds. With Adora, I expect her to have a great showing during the Ring of Honor Women's TV title tournament and potentially make noise there in both of Ring of Honor's divisions. You can also expect her to make noise throughout the indies just like she has done before. Next, Konosuke Takeshita. It is so hard to fully have hope, but I think they finally listen and start to push Takeshita like crazy, whether that be in tag or singles. I think he finally emerges as the main star once again and has himself a great 2024. Roosh is currently injured, but once he returns, gold has to be in his future in 2024. Whether it be trios, tag, TNT, or international, this man needs something, and I fully expect him to get something. Our runner-up is the Grizzled Young Veterans. These guys were already making the most of the last couple of months of 2023, so 2024 is going to be no different. 2024 is going to be such a crazy year for the vets. I expect gold from any company, whether it be TNA or the various indies. I pray for a tour in Japan and an appearance or two in Ring of Honor or AEW. Moving on to our winner of the Future Sight Award, I'm going to give it to Sarai, or Sarai as you know her in WWE. Again, if I am ever mispronouncing names, I sincerely apologize. Now, I know this one kind of seems like an obvious pick, especially with her being in so many people's Women's Wrestler of the Year contention. However, the reason I am choosing her as the main person to look out for in 2024 is simply that, barring any injuries, she's going to have a full year. And after the year she just had, she has gotten people back on her side, realizing the talent she has. This opens the door for a crazy 2024. More bookings across Japan, and even potentially something in the States. She has the floor for 2024 to cement herself as potentially the best, especially with matches looming like a potential Mayu Iwatani match. Sarai, the inaugural Future Sight Award winner. While on the topic of people to look out for, how about I tell you some of my favorite discoveries this year. Hana Kimura is the woman who introduced me and got me into Stardom, which has now turned into my favorite wrestling promotion. It is only fitting that I named the award about discoveries after her. Starting off, hello Trish Adora, nice to see you back. I'm pretty sure you guys are sick of me talking about her at this point. Put simply, she has a great look, understands how much presentation matters, and understands how to control an audience. Next, Yoda Tsuji from New Japan. I simply will never forget that match with Sonata. This guy just came out guns blazing and captured so many people's interest. Throw him in LIJ and you got me invested. His run into G1 was also great, and I'm excited for his future. El Hijo del Vikingo is definitely a wrestler that divides a lot of people. I can't tell you how shocked I was watching this guy. He does some of the craziest stuff and captures an audience like no other. He has room for improvement, and I think we'll see him make those adjustments in the near future. Our runner-up for the award is Sayori Ano. This woman just amazes me when it comes to counters, specifically when it comes to pinfalls. The spider pinfall is just mind-blowing each time. Some great work with Stardom this year, whether it was alongside Natsupoi or on her own. She has a unique aura, and I'm excited to see more of her work. Coming in at 1 and the winner of the Hana Kimura Discovery Award, Mei Seira. Talk about becoming an instant fan. The work she has done in Stardom this year has been amazing. She has had great high-speed bouts with Azumi. She had a hilarious story with Saki Kashima. She's had fun tag matches with Suzu Suzuki, Maika, and Megan Bayne. She has so much to her character that has helped her easily slot into Stardom. Easily my favorite discovery this year, and easily the most fun wrestler to watch. Mei Seira, the inaugural winner of the Hana Kimura Award. The Katsuyori Shibata Comeback Wrestler of the Year Award. Pretty straightforward. Wrestlers who suffered injury and came back to have a great year. Starting off, Megan Bayne. I told you we'd hear more about her later. After a full year away from injury, Megan Bayne made her return in April this year. Bayne spent time wrestling on the indies, but of course people began to take notice when she popped up in Stardom. From there, she has been on a run of a lifetime really. Her work with Mei Seira and Maika are amongst her best works. She has transformed herself as a wrestler, and many are excited for her return to the States. Both her matches with Julia and her match against Aphrodite with Maika are amongst her best works as well. AEW, you are getting a good one. Following that, we have the man himself, Cody Rhodes. The American Nightmare suffered that horrific pectoral injury last year, but finally made his return towards the beginning of the year. Rhodes would win the Rumble and go on to challenge Roman Reigns. We say challenge, of course, because Blood lost and got a rubber chicken thrown at him. From there, he had a feud with Brock Lesnar, the Judgment Day, where he would win the tag titles and go on to participate in War Games. Along with this, he has remained hot with the fans and still looks to finish the story in this upcoming year. Our next wrestler is Chris Statlander. Statlander returned from injury and instantly made an impact. On her return, she would dethrone Jade Cargill for the TBS title. From there, she would go on to have a great reign. She has finally had a healthy stretch and proved how great she can be. Our runner-up for the award is Mark Briscoe. Now, I know what a lot of you are going to say. Mark Briscoe wasn't injured. He wrestled throughout 2022. And you're right. He isn't coming back from a physical injury. Sometimes in the NFL, the story of the player takes over for their comeback award. Like Geno Smith becoming a starter after years of being a backup. In this case, Mark's injury wasn't physical, but he sure as hell had a lot to come back from. Losing his brother, Mark Briscoe chose to continue on for his brother. When the man could have easily chosen to hang it up, he chose to do the only thing he knew how. Mark Briscoe had a hell of a year despite the awful start that life handed him, and yet he has never once let it falter his year as he carried the legacy of the Briscoes on his shoulder this year. I know some of you might call me out for him not winning the award. The reason behind that is of course the injury aspect. It's still an award based around injury, but I wanted to use this little moment to thank Mark for his strength this year. Lord knows not many of us could have carried on in his position. Our winner of the award is of course the namesake of the award, Katsuyori Shibata. Now, once again, I know Shibata wrestled 3 matches in 2022. I know he technically returned in 2021 with a scrimmage match with Zack Sabre Jr. But to me, you cannot call those 4 matches a true return, especially to full-time competition. That is what we have seen in 2023. What nobody thought would happen, Katsuyori Shibata finally returned to full-time competition in 2023. After an injury that nearly could have taken his life, Shibata is back to wrestling full-time in 6 years. His run this year has been amazing to watch. He beat the crap out of Yuta in LA, had a fun 4-way match against Cassidy, Sabre Jr., and Garcia at Forbidden Door, a hilarious yet stiff match with Garcia in New Jersey, a great match with Kingston in Seattle before dropping the pure title back to Yuta. Just like Edge, Saraya, and Danielson, it is an injury that we all thought was career-ending. And yet here we are in 2023 getting to watch Shibata wrestle and be great, and it is just amazing. Katsuyori Shibata, appropriately the inaugural winner of the Katsuyori Shibata Comeback Wrestler of the Year Award. Onto our Steenerico feud of the year, appropriately named after the forever feud between El Generico / Sami Zayn and Kevin Steen / Kevin Owens. Every feud here has basically been talked about in bits throughout this video. Starting off, Mina Shirakawa and Saya Kamitani. Now, this feud wasn't entirely great. First off, how do you have Mina cutting such a passionate promo and you as the booker say, yeah, let's make her turn on her tag partner, form her own faction, and basically be seen as the villain of this story? Easily could have been better with a compelling face versus face matchup, Mina coming back from injury and Saya gaining her confidence. Despite all this, the feud was still good, and the resulting match, obviously as we discussed, was even better. The story of Saya regaining the faith to hit the Phoenix Splash paired with Mina's leg work was just super compelling, and despite the dynamics, Mina's win is still very emotional and deserving. Julia and Tam Nakano's feud, on the other hand, was great. With their rich history, the two added another chapter to their story. The image of Julia beating Tam to a bloody pulp during that press conference told everything you needed to know about the level of animosity between the two. The match that followed was violent and fierce. Next, a feud that took place throughout the entirety of the year in so many different settings. Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli have had beef spanning years, all the way back to their time in Chikara. This rivalry was reignited for Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor, only for Claudio to get the upper hand once again. This feud would culminate at AEW Grand Slam, where the two would face off for both the Ring of Honor World title and the New Japan Strong title. What followed was another feel-good moment as Eddie Kingston conquered his longtime enemy and became a double champ. It didn't end there though, as during the Continental Classic, Eddie was able to conquer his rival again. A win that would light a spark in Eddie and lead him to avoiding elimination and going on to win the Continental title, making him a triple champion. Whether it was the promos or the matches, the two worked magic and got you to believe in the hatred and the hero that was Eddie Kingston. Speaking of hatred, our top two consists of just that. A feud that started in late 2022 and continued into 2023. Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley put on one of the best feuds of the year. I know it didn't happen in 2023, but that promo from Page about the night he got concussed, I implore you to seek that promo so badly, man. One of the best promos that gets you to start questioning this feud. It starts as a feud where you think Hangman's anger is getting the best of him and quickly forces you to try and think, who is in the wrong here? The two try to solve their problems through normal matches, but it isn't enough and they have to take it to the next level. What follows is a crazy death match at Revolution, forks, barbed wire, cinder blocks, you name it. The two go out and put on a violent display after weeks of building animosity. A truly great feud this year that can only be topped by one. The Steenerico Feud of the Year award goes to Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland. Take everything from Page Moxley and ramp it up to 100. The feud starts off so simple. Swerve just wants to take Hangman's spot because he believes he doesn't want it anymore. From there, it spirals into these two becoming eternal foes. Some of the best promos this year, what's a buckshot to a kill shot, and it rains a lot in Seattle are some of the best lines from Swerve throughout this promo. Swerve invading Hangman's home was a crazy turn of events. It was one of the most compelling works this year from two of my favorite guys, and it earns them the inaugural Steenerico Award. The Azumi Champion of the Year Award, named after Azumi for her insane high-speed title reign that took place throughout 2022 and the first half of 2023. Our first champion of note is Chris Statlander and her reign with the TBS title. Spanning 174 days with 14 defenses, Chris Statlander had a great reign. Matches with Nyla Rose, Taya Valkyrie, Ruby Soho, Emi Sakura, Jade Cargill, Sky Blue, and Julia Hart. A fun reign that could have gone on for longer but yet never overstayed its welcome. Our next reign is a bit harder to judge as it didn't officially start until later in the year. The reign we are talking about is Christian Cage's work with the TNT title. Great matches with Darby Allin, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Copeland. Of course, the most memorable moments are the various promos and segments of Christian Cage doing some of his best work. Sticking with the TNT title, Darby Allin's reign at the beginning of the year was a great one. It was a reign that perfectly showcased you don't need a long title reign for it to be great. Matches with Juice Robinson, Kushida, and Buddy Matthews, and both the matches with Samoa Joe were great work for Darby. Our runner-up for the award is Julia's work with the New Japan Strong Women's title. Defeating Willow for the title, Julia would go on to have defenses against Yu, Deonna Purrazzo, Giselle Shaw, and Momo Kogo in a 4-way, Ami, Risa Sera, Azumi, and Megan Bayne. Julia has really done great work and it continues in this new year. Finally, our Azumi Champion of the Year goes to the champion who really had no competition. Gunther's work with the Intercontinental title has revived the title and given it purpose. Starting in 2022, Gunther has done masterful work with this title. Sheamus, McIntyre, Ali, Gable, Ciampa, Bronson Reed, all have tried, but none can put an end to the Ring General's reign. One of my favorites for the longest, and I am glad to see him shine on the biggest of stages. On the mic and in the ring, Gunther has shown through this reign that he is the man, and either of the world titles needs to be in his future immediately. The champion this year and the recipient of the inaugural AZM Award. Our Swerve Strickland Most Improved Wrestler of the Year Award. From watching him as Killshot in Lucha Underground to this point in time, the man is basically unrecognizable, thus him getting the Most Improved Award named after him. The simple criteria is wrestlers who either took a huge leap in their development or perhaps a return to form after a down year. Starting off, Angelo Dawkins had a pretty good 2023 for himself, especially the start of the year. Dawkins has always been a great wrestler, especially alongside Montez Ford, but 2023 felt like the year that a lot more people finally started to realize just how great he is. Many obviously think Montez is going to break out on his own, but Angelo's work this year made a lot of people realize he's not going to be left to rot as a solo guy. A wrestler who took quite the leap in 2023 was Shota Umino. Umino spent his time from 2019 all the way to 2022 wrestling in Rev Pro on Excursion. 2023 was his return to New Japan and quickly showed his development. Now he still has some ways to go, but his work this year definitely earned him a lot of faith from fans. Heading to AEW, we have a wrestler who took strides this year, and yet it feels like that work wasn't properly rewarded or capitalized on. Willow Nightingale showed some massive improvements this year. She emerged as a huge babyface that is massively over with the crowd. She caught fire so quickly and proved to be a valuable asset to their women's division. While AEW themselves haven't put all the pieces together with Willow, she made massive strides this year and was a joy to watch her work throughout it all. Our runner-up, just like the Entrance Award, is the namesake of the award. Swerve Strickland showed out this year. He already had a good 2022 with his tag team work with Keith Lee being a highlight of 2022, but 2023 was the year that he put it all together and made people realize that AEW has a main eventer on their hands. Obviously, many of us knew the talent he had, but 2023 was a complete transformation. Speaking of complete transformations, our 2023 Swerve Strickland Most Improved Wrestler of the Year Award. This is where bias shows a little, but also just allow me to speak freely real quick. The most improved this year to me is Mina Shirakawa of Stardom. Many will try to revise history, but I implore you to seek out some of the things people said about Mina since her arrival in Stardom. All people could talk about was that she was only here and in the position she was getting because of her body. People wrote her off as being nothing more than eye candy and would constantly talk down on her. Yet here we are in 2023 and she has put in the work to get her name amongst the best. Her work this year was so great it had plenty of people wanting her booking to improve and felt like she was being misused. Imagine that, going from people complaining about you just simply existing to now clamoring for you to win one of the top titles and complaining when your booking isn't great. That alone goes to show the improvement Shirakawa made this year. It was everything. Her look, her promos, her wrestling, her character. She started hitting on all cylinders and had a great year despite questionable booking. Mina Shirakawa, the inaugural winner of the Swerve Strickland Award. The Aphrodite Tag Team of the Year Award. Aphrodite is of course the team of Utami Hayashishida and Saya Kamitani of Stardom's Queen's Quest. Starting off, the team of Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis, Aussie Open. Now, let me start by saying that this year felt like a down year for tag team wrestling across all promotions, and it was for various reasons. Bad booking, injuries, certain tag teams being featured in non-tag feuds, and more. Aussie Open is one that had to deal with many of these injuries, but still carved out a decent year for themselves. They faced off against the Young Bucks at the start of the year, captured both the IWGP tag titles and the New Japan Strong tag titles. They competed in that crazy ladder match for the Ring of Honor tag titles, won the Ring of Honor tag titles, and had a good match with FTR at Wrestle Dream. Of course, they still had to deal with their various injuries and bad booking decisions. Another team that had to deal with some questionable booking was Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Zayn and Owens had a great moment in WrestleMania and then weren't allowed to move on. They were still involved with the Bloodline for months after, and then once they were finally free, they got stuck in a never-ending feud with Judgment Day. Now, the matches that occurred were great, such as the street fight, but why did the fans have to see some semblance of the Judgment Day facing off against Sami or KO week in and week out to build this feud? Thankfully, they were still able to have great matches with teams like Imperium, the Street Profits, and Pretty Deadly. I know I'm doing a lot more complaining during this section, but I just wanted tag team wrestling to be so much better this year. Anyways, coming in third is AEW's Bullet Club Gold, more specifically the team of Juice Robinson and Jay White. Talk about a perfect pairing. The run that these two went on once Collision started was insane. Their promos were great, and their feud with FTR was some of the best tag work this year. The Eliminator and subsequent tag title match were really good. Of course, injuries derailed this team when Juice went out. Still, their work when healthy was some of my favorite work from tag teams in AEW this year. Our runner-up is going to be coming out of Impact/TNA now. ABC, consisting of Ace Austin and Chris Bay, were a great tag team this year. Really, their only reason for not being number one is that I didn't catch enough of their work. What I did catch was really great tag work this year, amongst the best. A match that we'll talk about later is their bout against Subculture at Under Siege. Their feud and work with the Rascals was some of my favorite clashes of styles and characters. Going into the new year, I don't know how much is going to change with TNA, but I do know I will be looking out for ABC as always. Finally, our Aphrodite Tag Team of the Year award goes to Stardom's Natsupoi and Sayori Yano. Again, a team that's time towards the end of the year was cut by injury. However, all their prior work was amazing enough to propel them to this number one spot. Whether it was their work in Restart or as a tag team, these two just had a lot of fun matches. Their works against Club Venus, Donna Del Mundo, and Crazy Star were what propelled them to the spot. Their fluidity in the ring was amongst the best this year, and I only wish we could have gotten the full experience. Still, their work was enough to earn them the inaugural Aphrodite Award. I was close to naming this one after Utami Hayashishida, but I wanted to chill out on, all the Queen's Quest praise and all that. So, for this one, we have the Akira Hokuto Women's Wrestler of the Year award, an absolute ace who had it all down from presentation to in-ring work. Starting off, we have one half of the tag team we just talked about, Natsupoi. Natsupoi had herself a great year all around in all areas of wrestling, whether it was solo, tag, trios. She was doing masterful work. Her match with Mina Shirakawa for the white belt, her work with Sayori Yano, her insane match with Hashimoto, her time in the 5-star Grand Prix, all just masterful work before her late injury. After Natsupoi, the winner of the Most Improved Award, Mina Shirakawa. I think I've basically said it all at this point. Her story leading up to the white belt, her tag work with Mariah May as Rose Gold. The only thing that prevents her from being higher is her booking. Our next finalist was Suzu Suzuki, and by the way, I guess I'll say it here before we get into the top 3. Stardom is my main promotion of choice. I watch them the most out of all other companies I watch, so of course I'm going to have a lot of bias towards them because they are the work I see the most of. A lot of other women definitely had great years, I just likely didn't catch it. Remember, this is not an objective list, this is about what and who I enjoyed the most this year, and on that note, Suzu Suzuki's work this year was amongst the best. Started the year off hot with her trio's work with Prominence, her work with any combination of Micah, Megan Bain, and May Sarah, her run in the 5-star and the match to close the year with Micah. Still so young, but showed just how much talent she has and how bright a future she has. Our runner-up is one of the biggest talking points currently, Julia. Julia once again had a great year. She started off as the World of Stardom champion. To the shock of many, she lost it to Tam, but from there she only continued to do great things in Stardom. Along with Tekla and Mai Sakurai, she would capture the artist titles. They had a real fun cage match against Stars. Her work with the Strong title was some of her best work this year. As we listed, she had many, and I personally was a fan of so many of them, with my favorite being the Risa Sarah match. Overall, a strong year, and all we can do is look ahead to whatever the future holds for her in 2024. But now, we reach our Akira Hokuto Women's Wrestler of the Year award. Before I unveil the winner, I want to get this out of the way. Athena was on another level this year. The work she did in 2023 was great and was always the most interesting thing on Ring of Honor. However, the reason I can't give her the award is simple: availability. Athena's entire run has been locked away behind the paywall that is Honor Club. As I voiced my frustrations previously, it is baffling that she hasn't been featured on Dynamite, Rampage, or Collision, yet we have time for the 6-man titles, the tag titles, the world title, the television title. She has had a great run, and yet I only know that because of clips that are spread from other people online and the bits and pieces I am able to catch. I'm sorry for sounding so negative at various points throughout this video. It is just frustration with the year of 2023 in wrestling. A lot was great, and yet it could still be better with simple fixes like allowing the general audience to watch Athena on the run of her life. With that out of the way, let us go back to focusing on the positives, and that is our award winner, Donna Del Mundo's Micah. Talk about having yourself a year. There was actually a point in time this year that Micah hadn't been pinned. She was on a dominant run, 130 matches this year with a 62 win percentage. First off, her and Himeka had a great match for the tag titles against Nane Takahashi and Yu at the start of the year. From there, she has this emotional retirement match with Himeka. From that point, she went on the run of a lifetime, racking up wins and avoiding pinfalls and defeat. We then get to the 5-star Grand Prix, where she went all the way to the finals before losing to Suzu Suzuki. Her and Megan Bayne then dominated the tag league before losing to Aphrodite for the vacant titles. Now, I know you'll say that's a lot of losing, but it finally pays off in the end when she took on Suzu Suzuki at the end of the year for the vacant World of Stardom Championship. Was the young star Suzu Suzuki going to capture the title this soon into her Stardom career, or was Micah finally going to overcome the perennial bridesmaid title and finally become the bride, winning the red belt? We'll never know, because the feed decided it wanted to die right as the match was going on. Joking aside, Micah capped off a great year of wrestling and development by finally climbing the mountaintop and becoming the World of Stardom champion. She had an unbelievable year with so many memorable moments. When Stardom dealt with so many injuries, there was Micah to rise up and seize the moment. Along with that, Micah seizes the inaugural Akira Hokuto Award. The Bryan Danielson Men's Wrestler of the Year Award, named after my personal GOAT of wrestling. This year, there were so many strong candidates, many that have been talked about throughout this video. Starting off, Jon Moxley. Moxley is almost always going to be in contention for this award through sheer quantity alone. Almost always wrestling, and the majority of it being consistently great. This year alone, he had great work with Hangman, Orange Cassidy, and Eddie Kingston. His promos and story throughout the Continental Classic were great as well. Throw in the feud with the Elite and his work in New Japan and various indies, and you have another solid year for Jon Moxley. Another wrestler who had a great year through sheer volume alone is Will Ospreay. Similar to Moxley, Ospreay was everywhere this year, and most of it was always good. He had a top tier feud match with Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom. He was all over the place in Impact, Rev Pro, Noah for a match with Marufuji, and of course AEW. Another great G1 that saw him make it to the semis. Just another quality year for Ospreay. Coming in third is the best thing going for WWE, Gunther. Just as we discussed in the Champions section, a year of dominance for Gunther. His historic IC title reign has been the most interesting thing for the mid-card scene in years. His unique style and match structure. One of the things I will always love is that you never know when his matches are ending, because he just has so many different ways to beat you. It all comes down to how he wants to finish things, and each time it adds to the story being told. The best champion this year, and a great year for the ring general. Our runner-up is the namesake once again, Bryan Danielson. The American Dragon missed time throughout the year due to injury, and yet still had a year that many wish for. The weekly bangers to start the year, the Iron Man match with MJF, the feud with the Elite, facing Okada at Forbidden Door, the strap match with Ricky Starks, the dream match with Zack Sabre Jr., the Continental Classic run, just a masterful year, and to think we missed out on certain things due to injury. Not to mention, he had a lot of great matches while still being injured. Great stuff this year. However, there was one better. Or should I say two better? Yes, for the inaugural award, the Bryan Danielson Men's Wrestler of the Year has co-MVPs. And that is because of how similar of years that these two men had, and then how closely their years became intertwined. The winners for this year's award are Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland. Hangman started the year off hot with his amazing feud with Jon Moxley. From there, he reunited with the Elite and hit a little bit of a slump, but quickly recovered and put on all-time work once paired with Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland had a slow start due to the feud with Keith Lee that still hasn't gotten a proper payoff. However, things quickly improved with the addition of the Embassy and Prince Nana. He had a great mini feud with Orange Cassidy that had so many of us clamoring for him to win the belt. From there, he has a fun feud with Darby Allin and Sting that results in the casket match at All In. And from there, he became intertwined with the story arc of Hangman Adam Page. The best from AEW this year came from these two men. As I spoke in the feud award section, everything has been so perfect with these two. The matches, the segments, the promos, everything. These two just understood everything that needed to be done in their feud and have done it to perfection. The Jon Moxley feud helped Page recover after a down year. The feud with Swerve Strickland got him back on track to being AEW's protagonist, and Swerve being the ultimate villain in wrestling. Masterful work from both this year, and the co-winners of the inaugural Bryan Danielson Award. Well, we have now reached what we have all been waiting for, the top 10 matches of 2023. Now, wrestling is very difficult to rank because there's just so much to take into consideration. The story, the feud, the characters, the outcome, etc. As we saw throughout the video, there are so many things that can just affect your opinion on a match, especially when reflecting back. Ultimately, the main criteria that I always have is, first off, did I enjoy the match and everything that went into it? And as we go through each entry, I will obviously give my explanations as to what I enjoyed and what caused it to be on my list. As always, just like I stated in the music retrospective, there is no objective opinion on wrestling. I am not trying to offer an objective opinion. This is just my opinion and what I enjoyed from this year. Of course, this will all be ignored because when have wrestling fans ever cared about being rational and not taking everything as a personal attack on their favorite promotions and wrestlers? Without further ado, the Triple Crown Podcast Top 10 Matches of 2023. I was really torn between this match and the one versus Drew at SummerSlam. Ultimately, I think I would go with this one simply because the triple threat nature adds to the whole story of this match. Gunther comes in as champion, having to fend off two men in order to keep his title reign intact. Those two men, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, attempt to balance their desire to win and their friendship. We obviously see great spots of the two working together, but then we get little teases that ultimately lead to the two men finally having to fight one another, and we get a little 5-minute window where it's just the two of them battering each other and progressing their story. You also get great moments obviously involving these three big guys just clubbing each other, but one little nitpick, if you would say, that I have for this match is I didn't quite enjoy Gunther sitting out a good chunk, especially towards the end. Like I said, they give them that window for Drew and Sheamus to do their little thing, but it does make it a bit awkward at times to not have your dominant champion involved in the match. Still, I think the triple threat nature is what improves upon this match from the previous installments of Gunther versus Sheamus and the later installment of Gunther versus Drew McIntyre. The triple threat really adds a different element to it that overall improves the match. It was definitely all three men's best work this year and the main highlight from WWE's year as a whole. Gunther versus Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre, WWE WrestleMania Night 2, number 10 on the list. No doubt an unexpected pick. I can't even tell you how or why I was checking out this match and show. What I do know is that this is my favorite men's tag match of the year. Not to play spoiler, but there is only one more tag match on this list. Like I said previously, there was great work, no doubt, but I personally felt tag wrestling took the year off basically. As we said, could have been due to injuries, bookings, or various other reasons, but it just felt like a down year. Getting to the focus of this pick though, ABC's Ace Austin and Chris Bay have been a tag team doing great work this year, evident by the fact that if I was checking anything out from Impact, it was their matches. And this match is the best of that. You have great pace with great work from both ABC and Subculture's Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster. Subculture works that flashy, high velocity style, contrasted perfectly by ABC's fluid team and character work throughout. The dive off the ring post was insane. So many different spots where I was convinced of the ending, only for the match to enter another gear. The work from these two teams is just simply amazing, and ABC are so great at what they do. A match that makes me excited to see what both teams bring in 2024 with the reboot of TNA. Just real great stuff. ABC versus Subculture, Impact Under Siege, number 9 on the list. This match is one that is influenced by environment. It is the fact that I was in attendance for this match. To me, being there for this match is probably what it felt like watching Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic at NXT TakeOver Portland in 2020. To put it simply, just some of the craziest wrestling I have seen, and the fans added to that experience so much. Another thing that I think helps is that I had only seen maybe 1 or 2 matches from both men, so their arsenal of aerial attacks was completely brand new to me. The pure athleticism on display was a spectacle. Commander's ability to fluidly walk the ropes plus Vikingo's otherworldly dives had us on our feet for nearly the entire match. I still cannot comprehend the amount of spins Vikingo is able to get, let alone how he pulls off the move where he goes in the opposite direction. Many might complain and say it's just moves, but that doesn't make it any less great than any other match. To me, it is a special spectacle to see, especially live, and I'm glad to have such variety in today's wrestling world. If you would like to hear more about this match, I did put out a video about it discussing it in length, but yes, El Hijo de Vikingo versus Commander, Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor, number 8 on the list. While on the topic of different wrestling styles, can I interest you in some kicking?
Kicking? Oh, I want to do some kicking!
Stardom's 5-star Grand Prix is a round-robin tournament that culminates in the winner getting a shot at either of the 2 main belts. As we discussed, night 1 of this tournament was one of the best shows of the year. Many of the opening tournament matches were great, but none better than Suzu Suzuki versus Shuri. The match starts off hot with Suzuki hitting her Tequila Sunrise, followed by a suplex. She then takes the action to the outside by suplexing Shuri from the inside of the ring onto the elevated ramp. With all the craziness ensuing on the outside, you'd think it's going to be a chaotic affair. That is, until Shuri brings it back into the ring. If I could give a comparison, Shuri's kicks are as hard, as stiff, and as essential to her moveset as Gunther's chops. The sheer sound some of these kicks make is bone-chilling. Another thing I love about this match is the urgency from both competitors. a kick out is immediately met with another move or submission, never allowing for their opponent to get a second of rest. The German suplex to the outside is a crazy spot, and I love the forearm exchange that turns into Shuri laying the kicks in. The final sequence is one of the best of the year, as both women empty their entire arsenals, all for the prize of 2 points. Suzu Suzuki versus Shuri, Stardom 5-star Grand Prix, number 7 on the list. Put simply, one of the most fun and innovative tag matches I have ever seen. The absolute speed these 4 women work at, and yet still manage to remain fluid and concise in their maneuvers. Ano and Suzuki go strike for strike with this match, while Natsupoi and Mei add the high speed flavor. The tag offense in this match is also great and unique. To put into words how innovative the tag maneuvers are in this match, it would sound like a bunch of gibberish if I tried to explain it, even if I was using wrestling terminology. It is a match that you simply have to see, and even then, with the way they pull off some of these moves, you're going to be left wondering if you can believe what you just saw. Natsupoi and Sayoriano had a great tag run that we saw this year that was sadly cut short by injury, but nonetheless a great match from these 4 women of Stardom. Cosmic Angels versus Crazy Star, Stardom 5-star special in Hiroshima. Number 6 on the list. What? It's not number 1? It's not even in the top 3? It's not the Forbidden Door match? Yes. 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 There are various things that I look for in wrestling. And yes, many times that criteria changes depending upon the situation. When it comes to the Wrestle Kingdom bout, there are a few things that puts it above the Forbidden Door match, and a video on that will be coming out soon after this. First and foremost, the entrances. I have for the longest time been the biggest advocate for the presentation is what matters most in wrestling argument. There was no better presentation this year than the dual entrances of Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. We talked about it already, but yes, Kenny Omega comes out to One Winged Angel in the freaking Tokyo Dome with one of the smuggest grins on his face. Will Ospreay comes out to Elevated, cladded in emerald and gold and silver, surrounded by his United Empire family. Second, while we're on the topic, the United Empire knows their damn role. Unlike the Forbidden Door match where we have to deal with the Don Callis antics, the United Empire actually add to this match the various emotions and expressions as they stand there watching their leader just get battered and humiliated. Finally, I just think the story and the match are a bit better. We see an even matchup, both men going move for move until Omega goes psycho on Ospreay. He brutalizes him with the table. He bashes his head in on the exposed metal on the turnbuckle. My favorite part is that desperate leg grab from Ospreay, trying anything to buy him time from Omega. Beautiful reversals and one of the best fights from underneath in wrestling. And there's nothing better than the closing images of Ospreay being carried out by the UE, looking broken, defeated, lost, all while Omega walks out like it was just another Wednesday. Personally, I have questioned if I should move it up the list, but my top 5 is just so hard to rank as they are all the peak of the year in my opinion. Such a great match, such a great story that I can't wait to come out with the video describing it all to you. Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestle Kingdom 17. Number 5 on the list. One of the most fun matches of the year, as well as one of the most subtly told stories. I just absolutely love the story they were able to tell from just the story beat of Mercedes Moné wants a match with Azumi. This match is a prime example of how wrestling can be so simple. I won't go into too much detail, but it is just a great story that each woman contributes to in subtle ways. As far as the match goes, it is like a shot of adrenaline. It is a match that utilized the triple threat stipulation best in my opinion. It genuinely feels like all three women are involved rather than the usual affair that we see where two people are fighting in the ring while the other waits for their turn on the outside. The dives from Azumi and Hazuki are great. The spot where Hazuki just starts laying in stiff forearms to Monet was amazing. Mercedes Moné surprised me with her ability to keep up with both women. She also had her moments throughout the match, but much like the rest of her career, she shines best when selling for her opponents. The finish of this match also beautifully complements the story. For anyone who is interested in hearing about this story that I just keep mentioning, I'm going to do a little plug-in of the channel like I did with the Vikingo one. I did a video on this match and the feud that led up to it called Mercedes Moné versus Azumi versus Hazuki Masterpiece. The only reason I'm not going into too much detail here, I know especially, throughout the entire video, but more specifically here with the top 10, it's like I'm getting these done in less than 2 minutes. And the reason being is I just don't have the self-control to keep the yapping to a minimum, So I want to just keep these short and concise, but also at the same time, still trying to tell you what I love the most about these matches. So just know, each participant had their own story heading into this match, and this match did a perfect job of progressing those story beats. Mercedes Moné versus Hazuki versus Azumi, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Sakura Genesis. Number 4 on the list. Hey, so the same thing I said at the end of number 4 applies here as well. I did a video for this match as well, so to put it shortly, Ricky Starks is a man that for whatever reason is held under more pressure than others. As I said in the video I did, it is always sink or swim for Starks. Even when he proves he can swim, people constantly doubt his abilities. He is a man that has had to deal with some very frustrating booking. Things seemingly didn't get better when his dance partner for All Out leaves him hanging out to dry. The thing I love the most is that rather than ignore it or try and work around it, they just let Starks go out there and pour his heart and frustrations out in a promo. Starks was dealt the world's worst hand, and yet he went out and did what he has always done best, and that is prove people wrong. Him and Bryan Danielson go out and have one of the best matches of the year on a one-day notice. The pure brutality of this match. Nothing sticks in my mind more than when Danielson catches Starks right across the mouth with that strap. The visual of Starks looking defeated as Danielson just powers through each strap shot. The story element of Danielson asking Starks if he is going to take it, symbolizing both the violence and the real life treatment he is experiencing. Danielson wants to know if Starks is going to lie there and allow himself to be passed over, or if he is going to stand out from the rest and do something about it. And of course, the finish includes some of the best expression work of the year as Danielson chokes out Starks, who slowly just mouths to the camera, "No," before fading away. Starks may have lost, but it is a star-making performance. Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks strap match, AEW All Out. Number 3 on the list. Since June, my top 2 matches had remained unchanged. For months, my number 2 match of the year was Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page, Texas Deathmatch from AEW Revolution. In all honesty, that match could, and some would argue should, be on this list. However, I guess since I never went into detail about it, I tried my best to keep things from repeating, keep, matches from repeating, participants, stipulations. So for example, as you see with the title of this one, I really enjoyed Hangman vs. Swerve at WrestleDream, and it could easily make this list, but I don't want repeats in a sense, or I don't want to repeat the stipulations, so that is why Jon Moxley and Hangman Adam Page Texas Deathmatch misses. And to go into detail on that, it was on my list for the longest time, but that all changed when I got to see Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page. What improved it from the Revolution match between Moxley and Page? Well, it was the fact I got to see this in person. Not only is it 2 of my favorite guys right now, but it is also the story. If you haven't been able to tell, The top 5 is all about the stories to me. The stories are what elevate each and every single one of these matches. This started off as Swerve Strickland simply wanting to take Hangman Page's spot, and yet it spiraled into each man wanting to take each other's life. Being able to watch this match in person was special. The levels of violence and brutality that each man went to was mind-blowing. You had cinder blocks, glass, barbed wire chairs, you name it. Some might fault the interference, which I totally understand. However, the finish alone is a star-making performance. At the start of the year, it was Adam Page forcing Jon Moxley to submit. At the end of the year, it is Swerve Strickland hanging the Hangman, choking the very lifeblood of AEW. And yet very much on character with AEW's main protagonist, Page fights until the end, never submitting. After a full year of chaos, Swerve Strickland solidifies himself as wrestling's villain. Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland Texas Deathmatch, AEW Full Gear, number 2 on the list. Throughout this list, I have said many great things about various matches and various wrestlers. This is the best visual of the year, there is no better story, etc, etc. To be completely honest with you, I was lying. Because truthfully, there was no better single piece of media this year as great as Queen's Quest vs Oedo Tai. Another match that I made a video on, and a match that I could truly go on forever about. Obviously things will be different for everybody, but for me there is nothing better. Since the moment I have gotten into Stardom, my ties have been to Queen's Quest. For the longest time, I have sung the praises of Saya Kamitani. For the longest time, I have preached that Utami Hayashishita is the best women's wrestler on the planet. And the connection the two of them have is unlike any other in wrestling. The entire build to this match encapsulated years of build. It included the story beat of Momo Watanabe being the only leader to leave their faction when she turned on Queen's Quest to join Oedo Tai about 2 years ago at this point. It was the history between Tora and Utami. And of course, it was the story of whether Utami Hayashishita was fit to be a leader, only further exemplified by the issues occurring for the past couple of months between Kamitani and Hayashishita. The stakes of the match was that whatever team loses has to expel a member from the faction. This left the outcome wide open with various options of who could get the boot. The match itself is great. It has great action for a match featuring 10 people. There are a lot of great weapon spots. There's blood as Utami channels her inner Jon Moxley and wears the crimson mask. Like I said though, it is the story of the match. Utami Hayashishita is trying to prove to herself and her faction and the fans that she is worthy of being a leader. It is shown in simple spots, like when she holds an opposing Oedo Tai member down so that one of her members can escape the cage. It is seen when Lady C injures her back so Utami hoists her on her shoulders and helps her escape the cage. Despite their past issues, she is there to help Saya escape the cage, leaving her to fend off the last 2 Oedo Tai members. This all comes to a climax at the top of the cage. At the top, Utami is met by former leader Momo Watanabe and her current tag partner Saya Kamitani. Watanabe extends the baseball bat to Kamitani. Kamitani sits there holding the bat, thinking about everything that has occurred the past couple of months between her and Utami. What follows is the best payoff of the year as Kamitani hits Watanabe with the bat. She chooses the loyalty and love she has for her leader. You get the best visual of the year as Kamitani helps a bloody Utami to the top, where you get this picture perfect moment before finally they both escape the cage, securing the win and keeping Queen's Quest intact. The post-match segment is an emotional roller coaster that sees the members embrace their leader as they learn to trust and believe in one another. As the fans have been saying for the past 2 years, Queen's Quest is fine. Queen's Quest vs Oedo Tai Steel Cage match, Stardom Sunshine, number 1 on the list. And with that, 2023 has come to a close. I know this video is coming out a bit after the end of the year, but I wanted to put the most effort into recapping a good year of wrestling. I know there is so much that was left unsaid. Personally, I feel like I didn't talk enough about things and go into detail on certain things. Debuts like Adam Copeland, various big moments like All In, and many more. But see, the difficult thing about wrestling is that so much happens and you forget about it all. Along with that, wrestling is so hard to talk about because you either go on long tirades or just have very simple things to say. This is especially difficult when you're trying to keep a video short. Right now, I'm on page 41 of this script. Overall, I know there are things to improve upon, but I really hope you enjoyed this inaugural year-end retrospective. I hope you all had as much fun as I did with wrestling this year, and I hope 2024 is even better. Just like I always say, go out there and enjoy what you enjoy. Ignore the discourse and discussions based around negativity and hate, and just focus on enjoying things and enjoying wrestling. Enjoy what you enjoy, and don't be afraid to branch out. 2023 was a real special year for me, if you allow me to get real personal real quick. So much happened this year, and I'm really proud of myself. I've had a lot of struggles in my life, especially on the personal side. 2023 was the year I learned to enjoy myself. You heard me talk so much, both in the music and in this wrestling retrospective, about the things I got to do this year, and it's always crazy to look back on. Before this year, I had never been to a wrestling show, and yet I went to so many this year. I saw Dynamite at the Forum. I saw Ring of Honor in the USC's, I forget what it's called, but I saw Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor live. I saw New Japan come to Long Beach for Resurgence. At the very last second, my brother and I went to AEW Full Gear. I got to see so many people in concert this year, and it was all so amazing to just have fun and not care what anyone thinks, have fun and do the things I enjoyed. It's been so fun to start this channel and talk about the different things that I love. And that's why throughout both these retrospectives, I've heavily emphasized to people to just enjoy what you enjoy. Because at the end of the day, just do what you love. It doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter what other people are going to say. Just go out there and do what you enjoy. That's what I've been doing on this channel for the past year it's going to be. I wouldn't change it for a thing. And I will always look back on the year of 2023 as a real fun one and a real time where my life has changed. Once again, I thank you all for joining for all this. I watched a lot this year. I listened to a lot of music this year, as we saw. And even then, I'm trying to discover more in this new year, man. With 2023 behind us, let's look forward to having a great 2024.